Hello and welcome everyone to a new episode of the Breaking Barriers podcast brought to you by the Edward Syndrome Association. I know this is a different voice coming to you through your speakers and your headphones. My name is Robert Polacek, a board member of the Edward Syndrome Association, here to host a special Father's Day episode named the Dad Pod. With me are two fellow Edward Syndrome and Trisomy 18 warrior fathers, David Hine, father of Lillian, aka Lily, and Tim Hagen, father of Brooklyn, aka Brookie. Sorry about that. Welcome, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you with me today for this very special episode. David, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Hi, David. My daughter Lillian is 3.5. She was born on Veterans Day, and my wife and I were so thrilled first off when we were invited to be part of this, you know, Father's Day Dad Pod. And thanks for having me.
Awesome. We're happy to have you here. Tim.
Hey, Tim Hagen. My daughter's Brooklyn. She's 4 years old. She was diagnosed prenatally with trisomy 18, and yeah, just interested in the dad pod here. Thanks.
Wonderful. Well, we're gonna dad it up for sure around here. And Tim, I hear you're all about the dad jokes, so let's keep them rolling when they pop in and out here.
Okay.
And once again, my name's Robert Polacek. I am the father to Mia Polacek. She is 5, gonna be 6 here in about a month and a half. And she's full trisomy 18, Edward syndrome. And we didn't know about her condition until she was 3 days old. And I know my wife has explained that story. And I mean, we can even dive into my portion of that story maybe later in this podcast. But for to start, let's go with what does being a dad to an Edward syndrome warrior mean to you? David, you want to start us off?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It means so much in so many different ways. Obviously being an advocate, I work in hospitality industry and one of the larger theme parks in Central Florida, and so I work with a lot of cast members, and I see a lot of different family makeups, and I have pictures of my daughter all over my desk and my other sons. And which is great because my cast members, I can see them make that look and kind of, and then I have that window to open up about it. But opening up, being that advocate for her, it is, there's so many emotions daily, weekly, between not knowing what the outcome's going to be of if I have a cough daily or if one of my sons bring home. But it's just there's so much excitement knowing and hearing from these other dads, like, Tim, your daughter is 4 and Mia is now 5, and the hope wasn't there in the beginning, and hearing from all these other, I have that hope now. So it's exciting, and just um it is really hard to put it into words at times, like what it means to me. It's just a feeling, the immense love that my daughter has and that we have for her. So um, that's kind of the gist of what it means to me, and just being that advocate for her.
Yeah, absolutely. Tim, would you like to add?
Uh, so what was your set off
So
question?
we were just
Oh,
broad.
what does it mean to be
What
a
does
trisomy dad?
what does being a
Oh,
dad for an
yeah.
Edward syndrome warrior mean to you?
So it's funny because so Brooklyn is our only child, so I don't know if that is a different take on things or not from you guys. I didn't know what you if you guys had other kids or not, but so I don't know if it's any different than being a dad from well, obviously there's differences from a typical kid, but all of it was new to us, period, being a dad. So it's just I think a different um just a different journey essentially, like I don't know if but I just didn't have much to compare it to.
Mhm.
So having
Well, I mean,
talked.
that's an incredible perspective, not to cut you off,
Yeah.
just because it's all you know.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yep.
that's a very vital support system that you have for, for situations like this, of being
Yeah.
able to just kind of tell your story and speak your story. So maybe we can kind of go back to the beginning then, and just kind of say, kind of what were kind of your thought process. You said you learned about Brookie's diagnosis in utero, right? So
Yep.
kind of maybe walk us down
Yeah.
that path, down that path, knowing that, like, I mean, I don't know what your conversations were with you and your wife, but thought process is like, is this going to be really our only child? How are we going to do this type of thing? Kind of maybe walk us through that mindset from your perspective, because I know, Aaron has done so,
Yeah.
in other platforms.
Yeah, I did. I wanted to touch on it. I made a little note here about how that is a big topic of this was the early diagnosis. And for her, or for us, it was I think it was like a 10-week pregnancy test or whatever. It was a blood test.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I remember, so the doctor, she was older when she had, well, Erin was older when she had Brookie, so she was being closely followed anyway. But yeah, the doctor called her and said, "Hey, they came back, your blood test came back for trisomy 18, and basically that it was not good, and just Google it." And so, you Google it, and then, I'm going down these rabbit holes of, I don't know if it's UC Berkeley or all these like colleges that have done, what's out there for research. And one of them was, it's wrong 60% of the time, this
right.
test, I'm like, sweet, because we didn't do the amniocentesis, I believe it's called,
Okay.
where it's a
Yep, that sounds
more,
right.
so the whole, basically from 10 weeks till she was born at full term or whatever, 38 weeks, in my head, I was like, kind of hoping, and or not, like, I was wondering if I should be praying for this to not be true, type
Right.
thing, because you just read how, you know, serious of a condition it is. And
It's doom and gloom
yeah,
from it, and that's all Google is, and that's
yeah,
ultimately why we started what we did. But carry on.
yeah. No, that was, and so Erin found these Facebook groups, and I remember she said, um she's like, she started following one of the kids, and she said she's like pretty normal, she just has a G tube. And when she said that, like, and now I, like, to me, that, like, I swallowed hard, I'm like, what, a G tube? Like, I don't know what G tube is.
Is that? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, what the heck? Like, so that means I don't eat by mouth, like, so, but then, 3 years into it, Rookie's basically just got a G tube, which is good, like, you know that's that's a good prognosis for
Mhm.
somebody with Edward syndrome, so
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. David, would you like to tell your
Yeah,
story?
um, absolutely. So, not there's a lot of similarities to our situation from Tim, and Brookie. So so Lillian being our third child, so she's the youngest. So again, reversed of yours, Robert,
Right.
having, your typical child after Mia. But so we had two boys. At the time they were, if I could do the math, 5 and 7-ish. And my wife's sister-in-law had just moved down about a year prior, and she has been an ultrasound tech her whole life. So we were super excited. This was the first baby that my wife's sister was going to ultrasound, and it was that really special moment for my wife and her sister. Um, and so it was super early. It was like even 6 weeks in, she's like, I can just sneak you in. So she stuck my wife in, everything was good. And then it was like 8 weeks in, and I wasn't at the appointment. And I made a point to like make as many as I can. I'm at work, and I get a call from Britta. Um, and I remember it specifically, and like something's not right. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's words are broken. She's in tears. I can only understand so much. Um, And the word trisomy gets thrown out there, and I said I have no idea what that means, and it was obviously really early. I called my sister-in-law and was like, hey, what is this, like, what's going on, what does this mean? And she says it's not good. And I said, what do you mean it's not good? Like, she's like, I've never known a successful baby like with trisomy 18 or whatnot. And I said, okay. And I'm sitting in my company vehicle in like a parking lot, just you know angry, tearing up, getting upset, and I don't really know what else to do. So the shock factor lasted for a while, and they're like, we're gonna send you to the high risk doctor at that point. We ended up doing amniocentesis after the second appointment with MFN because they checked. They're like, no, everything looks good. It doesn't seem like anything's out of the ordinary. So then we went from that low to high to back to low because that then the next appointment with MFN, they told us like, okay, well, no, now we do see something that, we want to do amniocentesis. Britta and I were like, we weren't sure. We were talking about it in the room. They explained the situation. I was like, okay, so really long needle into the belly, grabbing some of that liquid out to test it. And Britta was terrified. I was terrified, of course, and I hate to say it, but like as the dad, it's like I have to be that strong person, at least in my mind. Um, but she could see it in my face also that I was terrified. We did it. It came back positive for trisomy 18. We had Googled prior and we saw the same thing you saw, Tim, as far as doom and gloom. Um, and it wasn't until probably 30 weeks in that we had a friend, one of Britta's best friends, reach out and said, "Hey, we found this group, Soft, on Facebook." And then things started to change because we were going, and we'll probably talk about this later, but we were going to do comfort care. We weren't going to do any interventions. Reading what we had thought we knew from Google and the other, I think, misinformation. And then it was late into the pregnancy, like 35, 36 weeks in, maybe after we had a palliative care conversation with the hospital. And we're like, no, this doesn't feel right. Like, we want to give every chance possible for Lillian and for our daughter. And we completely switched our plan options. And it was the best thing that we ever did. And now we have this fantastic miracle story to share.
Absolutely. No, that's a beautiful story. And that's also why I love doing this dad pod with you guys, because all three of our stories are vastly different. Because my wife and I, we didn't do any of that 10-week blood test, any of that, because once we got pregnant, it took us a little longer than we initially anticipated. Everyone says that, but in our minds, we're two athletes, we're having fun. It's gonna happen pretty soon, right? Nah, it took a couple of months. So like when she finally got pregnant and she told me, we were ecstatic. So we were just like, all right, we're now gonna be at the time we had our dog Siebes. So it's like, no, we're not gonna be going from a family of three to a family of four, right? So like this is gonna be awesome. And we were just kind of enjoying the ride, going along. But I think at about once Gina tipped into the third trimester, she had her checkup, and that's when they noticed that Mia just kind of stopped growing. She kind of plateaued. And they're like, this is kind of interesting. So they sent her to not an MFM, but like semi high risk doctor just to get another ultrasound. And I remember it vividly to the day. I was technically still working remotely at the time, but I think I ended up like just taking the afternoon off after this because when we went and got this ultrasound, um, they took the ultrasound and I just remember the ultrasound tech just getting quiet. And I just was like, this is odd. This is very interesting. Then the doctor came in and started doing the ultrasound. And they were like, and he was like, she has a very sizable hole in her heart. And at that point in time, I was like, "What? Where did this come from?" And and Gina's just breaking down at this point in time too, because she's past 30 weeks pregnant at this point, right? So we're like, okay, that's news to us. How are we going to tackle this? So they send us to like a special cardiologist to go do another ultrasound, same day, different hospital, um, and whatnot. And we did that. And ultimately, we just kind of started a game plan from there. Mind you, we had no idea of trisomy 18 Edwards syndrome at this point in time. All we knew is that she was undersized and she had a sizable hole in her heart. So fast forward about 3, 4 weeks, we get an what's it when you escalate a pregnancy to have the baby? It's
Oh,
my wife's gonna kill me when she listens to this.
yeah.
It's drawing a blank. Anyway, so we had it planned, and the week prior she was upside down technically, right? And I
Preach,
remember
yeah.
the night before, Gina was very worried about being induced. There we go. An inducement. About being induced. So that night I remember just literally looking over at my wife and seeing Mia flip in her belly on the couch. And so she's like, "Sweet, I think she just flipped." And sure enough, we went in the next morning and she was head down. So we just went forward with a natural birth, knowing that like we had, the cardiologist going to be on standby, the surgeon ready to put her in immediate surgery if necessary to patch the hole in her heart, everything, right? Sure enough, in typical Mia fashion, she decides to make her grand entrance in the middle of nurse shift change, literally right after 7 a.m. in this hospital that we were in, right? So so she was delivered. I almost caught my very first child, who I know has a sizable hole in her heart because the person who delivered her was a resident and had never delivered a child before. So she was in there kind of helping her, and like Gina can go into the long story here, but essentially like it was like a 15-minute turnaround. She was like feeling the pressure, pushed her out. I almost caught her. And then there was like a 30-second like pause because like Mia didn't cry or take a breath or anything right away, but they got her breathing and then it was kind of good. And I remember vividly being in like this weird rock in a hard place position. Like they were rushing Mia to the NICU, and I remember turning to my wife and I'm like, "What do I do? Do I stay with you?" And she's like, "What do you mean? What do you do? You go with our child." I was like, "Okay, yeah, I will." And I just remember just being on cloud nine. Like I was telling Mia about like, "Hey, I'm gonna be walking you down the aisle in 25 years, and like you're the most beautiful girl in the world. Like I've never like just like cloud nine, right? First dad, first 20 minutes of being a dad." Um, and so didn't even make 2 cents of her only being 3 pounds 4 ounces. And so fast forward a couple of days, and we didn't really know that they took like a blood sample because they were suspicious of the trisomy 18 because of her clenched fist. Um, Fast forward a couple of days, and we are staying at the Ronald McDonald House because it's being known that she didn't have to be rushed into emergency surgery. She was just kind of being monitored, and she was doing relatively well. Um, but 3 days later, we were literally sitting in this Target parking lot that's a block and a half from the hospital that she was born at, and the Ronald McDonald House that's just a block away from there. And I remember it to this day vividly. I'm putting myself right there right now in the spot. My wife's phone rings. She picks it up, and someone's on the other line telling her that she's so and so, and that she has like this DNA test. It's not completely back yet, but like the prelims are back. Would you like to hear? And my wife's like, sitting in a Target parking lot about to go get feminine products because I just had my first child. No, I really don't. But then it turns out the genetics counselor on the other line just continues to talk and tells my wife that Mia more than likely has trisomy 18. And my wife's like, I have no idea what that means. So then she's my wife's research mind starts going haywire. So as we're walking into Target, she's like, oh my gosh, starting to freak out, panic. And me as the dad and the husband to my wife, I'm like, just trying to stay calm, take it one step at a time, being like, hey, we're in Target to get you something. Let's focus on that. Do that. Then we can go back to the hospital and we can talk with the doctors and the nurses and whatnot. From Target to the next evening, my mind goes blank. Well, no, it doesn't. Because that night, my wife didn't sleep at all because her mind was like, okay, I'm going to go to Google and try and figure everything out. And sure enough, she doesn't sleep a wink. I slept fine because I was like, we don't have answers yet. I'm not going to be freaking out. And Gina will hate me saying that, but I was like, we don't have physical knowledge yet. Right. So so she didn't sleep. I wake up and she's still sitting up on her phone. I'm like, what's going on? And she's just doom and gloom. Like, this is gonna be the worst situation ever. And I'm like, okay, like this doesn't sound great, but we also don't know yet. Fast forward to that evening, that day was not a great day. I have my favorite hot dog place that I can never go to again, unfortunately, in Chicago. But that's here nor there. That's my wife's decision. That evening, I remember, it hurt. It sucks even more because the day that this happened on is also. So I'm a big Metallica fan. The lead singer of Metallica is James Hetfield, as you both know. His birthday is the day that we got the actual news diagnosis that my daughter has trisomy 18 and how it was told to me. So now it's like a black cloud for me. Funny Metallica, right? Anyway, she, so the genetics counselor comes in by herself, tells us the news, and my wife breaks down instantly. And I remember, and I'm, I don't know about you guys, but growing up, like, I didn't like crying because I showed vulnerability, right? But when I got married, that kind of changed because I remember breaking down at the aisle, seeing how beautiful my wife was, coming to me to be my wife. And I was like, okay, something's changed in me. That was also a moment where when we were told that it was official and they gave us the documentation, I broke down instantly. But I also knew I couldn't do that for long because my wife wasn't going to be able to focus. So I don't even remember kind of the conversation and talks that I had with the genetics counselor at that moment. I just remember trying to at least talk to her because my wife was just inconsolable at that point in time. And also just kind of get information and say, okay, thank you. Let's move forward. Now, you know, God willing, through all that Mia's been through, she's thriving. She's doing fantastic. And that's ultimately why we're all here, is to just tell our stories that even in the darkest, doom and gloom moments of this, staying the course. And ultimately, at that point in time, the genetics counselor told us to go on to hospice care, go home, make her comfortable. And my wife and I instantly looked at one another when she left the room and said, no chance. That is
Yeah.
not happening. I would quote Vince McMahon's entrance music, but I'm trying to keep this PG here. Um,
Can
and
I jump
so
in on that? Can I
yeah,
jump
yeah,
in on that also? Like
yeah.
during in utero also, like my wife's normal OG or OBG also like they
An
recommended
OG. Who
termination.
knows?
You know, they recommended termination the whole time. Like and we kept hearing that. And it was almost every like appointment somehow it kind of seemed like it came up if hey, is that the option you want to go? And then when we went to MFN, the same thing happened. And it just it just eats away at you and it's frustrating and you just get angry because you don't know what to do in that moment and you Google and you search and you look for all of these stories and hope and I forgot to mention like we actually did the amniocentesis because we were positive for spina bifida. That I
Mm.
forgot to mention that. And so there was a possibility of us doing the in utero surgery to repair that. And then it came
Oh,
back that we were trisomy. That was, but yeah, it yeah. I but that doom and gloom will always float overhead, but you gotta find the shining light coming through the support groups and the other parents that have been going through this and have experienced it because there's so much hope out there. You just can't let the negative overcome.
no, absolutely. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, you reminded me of something else. So, when I was telling about her doctor telling her the first time, that was the MFM, and we actually had seen somebody prior that said the same thing to to you guys about that she's never seen a baby survive that had this sac or whatever that they could see in in the ultrasound. So, and my wife at the time, I remember, we hadn't even told our family yet, you know, and uh, I remember my wife just like hating this this doctor, you know. She's like, my wife was saying, well, she's going to be the first, you know, she's going to be the first one that you see born or whatever. But I did want to share another part of this story. So my wife had probably, I think, at least two miscarriages prior to this uh birth or this pregnancy. And so this was during COVID. So we had gone in or whatever, and they said, you know, it looks like you had another miscarriage or whatever. So my wife's obviously very upset. And they said, you know, you come back in like 10 days or whatever, we'll do another one. And so we go back in 10 days, and they don't even let me in because it's COVID. It's one at a time. So
Right.
I'm out in the car in the parking lot, and I get a call from Erin, and just like she's hysterical. And she said the doctor was wrong. The doctor was wrong, like, because he heard a heartbeat, you know, and like so the week before, like when we were there the last time, he said, I'm sorry, looks like you had a miscarriage. And he actually they handed her the medication to take to terminate the pregnancy. And my wife says, well, she was just totally devastated. And she says, you know, I don't want to take it. She called her friend and said, well, what's the harm in waiting 10 days, you know? So she didn't take it, waited the 10 days. And that's when the doctor said, he goes, oh, I was wrong. So
Wow.
there's like a serious will for Brookie to be alive.
That
Yeah.
is incredible. If that
How do
it,
you make?
I don't know where your guys' faith and religious beliefs are, but if that's not divine intervention, I don't
Yeah.
like that's the
Right.
definition right there. Like Brookie is meant to be here and telling our
Right.
story for you to be
Right.
the dad to do so, and Aaron the mother to do so. That is incredible. That is fantastic. Good on Aaron. And good on
Yeah.
you for
Yeah.
supporting her
Yeah.
to do so too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, truthfully, just think about it from like an inexperienced father standpoint. Like I said, like for me, it was my first child. Like if I didn't have the faithful background that I did, getting that diagnosis, who's to say people could be like, yeah, let's just continue on with that. But I mean, kudos to you and Aaron to be saying like, yeah, okay, I got these, but I'm not going to take them. Like our child is still like that had to have been some connection that Aaron had to Brookie already at that time, you
Mhm.
know, through
Yeah.
God's faithfulness, that she was already connected with her and knew that she was, you know, going to be thriving at some point in time.
Right.
It's just what I can put in, and I don't want to speak for you, but that's just what I'm gathering just from that story itself. Like that's incredible.
Mhm.
Can I ask? Did you guys both have natural births, or was there C? I
Yeah.
know Robert, you did. Did you as well, Tim? Or was your C-section?
C-section.
Okay,
C-section.
so like, and that was a new experience for us because for my sons, like I was right there. I was holding a leg of my wife. I was seeing everything, coming
Counting.
out
Yeah.
right into that world. And then for my daughter, it's like, okay, we're planning C-section. Okay, they bring her back. They're like, okay, when we're ready, we'll bring you in. They're ready. They bring me in, and I'm just seeing my wife's head and a giant wall of a sheet. And I know nothing else what's happening. What I do know is Lillian was breech, so they had to. Um, her feet and hands were always blocking her face, which they weren't sure what the cause was. And then when the doctor, like, and I still remember it so vividly, the doctor obviously must have made the incision, and then he's like, I hear him say like, "Hi, baby, how are you doing?" And then and he explains it where literally the hands and feet both come out of the incision at the same time, which was great because Lillian had a myelomeningocele, a giant, like practically a softball size sac on her back for her spina bifida. And if it wasn't for the way she was positioned, like that sac had a higher chance of rupturing, but because that sac was ideally like the last thing that kind of came out, it was the most protected. And then that 30 seconds or however long it took to hear that baby cry, I swear that's the longest time in my entire life because it was probably only like 10 seconds at most. and then you hear it, and of course, like, I don't care who you are, like the waterworks are forming, like, you head to head with your wife, and it's just it's the hope and everything that you wanted, knowing that there's a high percentage of stillborn or something else
Right.
happening with our kiddos. So um yeah, I just wanted to share that as well.
No, that's spot on. That's incredible. Um, so I guess maybe we can kind of tailor this to the next step. So also this month is what I learned earlier this month is also known as Men's Mental Health Month. First, I'm hearing about it, but I'm loving it. So, what gets you through those hard days? Not just at the beginning that we've already expressed, but now, as you know, David and I, we've experienced a lot of recent hospital stays. And I mean, we can touch on we just kind of focus on just the mental side right now. We can touch on other aspects of that down the line, and how you each both mentally take care of yourselves, even physically, because I mean, physically and mentally are vital and work hand in hand. So, what's kind of things that you do that you think might be beneficial as you're walking this life of being a father to an Edward syndrome warrior? Tim, go for
Tim,
it.
you want to go? Yeah.
Do you want to go, Dave?
I don't care. I mean, I can start if you want.
Sure, sure.
Sure. So as cliche as it is, it's really about enjoying those little things in life, like in those small but monumental accomplishments each day. Um, and I am so thankful that I have my boys that I have to focus on, like in those times where, Lillian ends up being in the hospital. Um, Parenting doesn't just stop for my other two kids. And Britta and I have to divide and conquer. And if I let her, she will live at the hospital with Lillian. Like she's even said it a few times. Like sometimes she feels like that's her safe space because she knows she has all the care in the world. Like, and we are so incredibly comfortable with our medical team now. We have developed that relationship and that bond with them. But then being away from not just my daughter, but now my wife, and it weighs on your mental state so much. But you can't let it affect you because again, you have to take care of the rest of the family. So I am so thankful that my boys are just bright shining light for me, and they keep me distracted. We try to do something fun, whether it's going to a theme park or it's going to just a playground, playing sports with one another, keeping them active, because not only does it affect our mental health, it affects you know them as the sibling of their daughter or their sister who's in the hospital. One of them gets so incredibly angry, like to the point of like throwing things or upending, and the other one just like fetal position, sad, sometimes just crying, like, and they don't know how to experience like their emotions. I don't know how to experience my emotions sometimes dealing with everything that we have to go through. um but thankfully, like Britta and I have a great system. Like I work Monday through Friday, and my job, if I have to take off, I have to take off to take care of my other kids. And then we tag team it, on my weekend from work. Like I need to make sure I give Britta a break any chance I can, because you can't sustain being in the hospital for so long constantly. I don't know about you guys, but anytimes I've been at the hospital for numerous days, like all I do is sit there and just snack on food. I'm a nervous snacker, and I'm like, I'm gaining clearly weight because I'm eating delicious hospital food. I'm sitting there, one of the last times, Lillian was intubated. I can't even hold her. I can't even like snuggle with her. So
Right.
then you're just sitting there staring at your child, and you feel so helpless. But you gotta stay engaged. You gotta focus on the positive things in life that's going on. Okay. We're in a good place. We're safe. We don't know what tomorrow holds, but you have to compartmentalize things and just focus on one thing at a time, okay? Her oxygen is doing good right now, okay? Maybe this is struggling, but we see where the path is to get to that next step to to do what we can to get her healthy. And you just you FaceTime with your sons and your wife, and you have conversations, and you're open about everything. We for the longest time didn't tell the boys, the diagnosis of Lillian in utero, and the fact that, it may not go the way we want it, because we didn't want them to carry that burden or that weight, because my oldest is very empathetic and he feels, immensely. So we were thankful to just have each other. If it was, I don't know how it would be for me if Lillian was my first. I had my sons to keep me lifted up. So now I definitely want to hear your guys' side of the story on how you guys can, stay positive.
Right. Tim, I'll let you go.
So when I think about self-care or whatever with raising a special kid with special needs, I had heard, I don't know if this is on the radio or something, but I heard that caretaker 101 is take care of yourself first. And so my wife would probably smack me for saying that, because she's well aware that I try to take care of myself first. And uh I just feel like I don't know if you guys ever heard the saying hungry, angry, hungry, and angry, lonely, tired. But if one of those is affected, like kind of watch out type of thing, especially hungry and tired for myself. So
Or hangry when they get
yeah,
mixed.
hangry. Yeah, yeah, it's not good, right?
Mhm.
So honestly, like I feel like for myself, like if Brookie's got a little crying, but starving or something, like I'll feed myself first, and then I'll be able to take care of her, like she can cry for a minute, while I yeah, I don't know, like that's me. But she's the opposite. It's if she's crying, like she's right to her, but I don't know. So I feel like that gets me to survive. And then when you guys are talking about the hospital, so yeah, like I think it was probably she was in the hospital probably half of her first 3 months of life. So that was difficult. Like we used to make up songs on the way to every three Friday nights in a row. We were on our way to the Connecticut Children's emergency room. Um, and not knowing what the heck's going on, always like pulmonary kind of issues or whatever. And yeah, so I mean, it becomes part of your life. Like I'm very well, I can get my way around Connecticut Children's and Boston Children's really well, and we almost, like, I won't say thrive, but like we can handle those situations like pretty decently now. A lot of these they have I think we stayed in probably like 6 different places, whether it's Ronald McDonald House or they put us up in the Yawkey Way. Our friends that live next to Connecticut Children's, we stayed there close to them. But like, so there's these little small, they're almost like dorm size rooms. Some of the hospitals have that let you sleep there. And it's like, I could bring my laptop if I need to, like, so work isn't, I can work basically from inside the hospital if I need to. But we've just learned to like these little small spaces, you know, survive in, without a kitchen. It's funny you said about eating the food. I remember coming home, the heaviest I've ever weighed, definitely from like a 3-week hospital stay, and so I don't know. I just want to bring those stories up.
Yeah, for sure. Do you remember any of those songs?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, sing one.
Oh, I got the whole song probably. So we had a uh when we were on probably the third time on a Friday to the hospital, we started thinking about how many doctors she had. And we were
Okay.
like, she's probably got a doctor for every letter in the alphabet. So we were like, audiologist, birth to 3, cardiologist, dietitian. So it's audiologist, birth tooth 3, cardiologist, dietitian 2, ear, nose, and throat doctor feeding team, gastroenterologist, don't forget geneticist, hernia surgeon, IV team, J2 placer, kangaroo extender, laryngoscopy, maternal fetal medicine, nebulizer treatments, orthopedic, and an ophthalmologist, pediatrician, and a pulmonologist, Dr. Quiet, respiratory therapist, speech therapist. Don't forget about the threat and limb team, ultrasound techs, very nice nurses with lots of weight checks, and your favorite attending, I think, and zero
X-ray machines. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
That's incredible.
fantastic.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
You guys could probably check off a couple of those boxes, huh?
Yeah, quite a
I mean,
few.
yeah,
I probably
you can pretty much there was one in there that I had no idea. I've never heard that term and I forgot what letter it was. I'll
The
listen back and
O,
I'll message you about it. But
the O, I remember,
well,
I remember.
that's
No,
ophthalmologist.
no, what was the one? It was right near there. It was,
Yeah, it
kangaroo
was in there.
extender.
What was
but
that? Say that again.
Part of the G tube or a J. She had a GJ, so
yeah.
Oh,
But
maybe.
we didn't have a Dr. Quiet either.
oh yeah,
Oh,
that was her cardiologist.
that's
Yeah.
incredible.
We did have a
I
doc.
li-
Yeah, never mind.
I literally thought that was just a nickname for a doctor that was quiet. So
Oh
you
no no
just
no
kind
no
so you
no
just
yeah.
kind of threw that in there.
QUIAT. So that was the other cool thing about and I give my wife all the credit for this with the same thing we had, like I had talked to I did a virtual meeting with a geneticist before she was born from Connecticut. My wife was like, I don't care, like I don't want to hear what she's got to say. It's probably not going to be good, And she told me she's probably, has like she'll probably have the cognitive level of like top out at like 3-month old, which she's about double that now, probably. So she was wrong. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I forgot what I was talking about after I said that. I lost my train of thought.
Oh,
Well,
good. I'll take it from here.
okay.
So yeah, for me, um, I mean, for the past, let's see, it's middle of 2025, 11 and a half years, almost 12 full years. I had a personal shift in mindset for myself where I literally started taking my life and living it one day at a time. So the moment Mia came into our lives, I just pursued that. And I still do that to this day. So no matter what Mia is doing, now that doesn't mean that the one day that I'm in currently isn't the absolute bottom of the barrel type of day, because as David knows, and Tim, you've experienced those as well, those happen. But how I get through those is knowing that I just need to stay focused on the task. And also what I've come to really learn is being present where my feet are. And what that means is, as dads, and David, you touched on this, where and the moms are like this too, where their minds are going in a bunch of different directions, trying to figure out and work with the doctors. We are too, but our minds are also on the home front. We also have jobs. I mean, some moms are working through this with jobs too, but us as dads, we're either the sole proprietor or we're working in lockstep with our wives doing part-time stuff and whatnot. For me, we're blessed to be in single income household. So not only do I have to worry about my daughter's health and when she's in the hospital, but my wife's mental health and her stability and being able to be the advocate that I know she'll be and wants to be at her peak potential when she's in the hospital. But also we have a 3-year-old daughter at home as well. And I have a job that is being the basis for our entire style of living. And we're not lavish people. We just enjoy to live life at the fullest when we possibly can and incorporate our daughters into every aspect of that as we possibly can. So when we are and I'm having those bad days, honestly, it's Mia's smile and Mia's her like I will come home from, especially at my last job, I will come home from the hardest day and like it just beat me down. And I literally go to her, greet her, make eye contact, and she puts on the biggest smile as I just kind of rub her back and all gone. Bye bye. It's gone. And that just comes with, just being present. And I know it's very easy, and there's a misconnotation within society that dads are, when they're working, they're always putting work first. They're always, their mind is not always on the family. It's not always on the kids. I'm here to tell you that's the exact opposite. Even when I'm at work, I'm thinking about my wife and my daughters because the work that I'm doing is to benefit them. It's and when I'm benefiting them, I'm benefiting me because as dads, it's from how I was raised and how I, am brought up and how I want to be a father to my girls is being that catalyst and that father and that individual for them to be. I'm not the perfect person. I'm far from that. I beat myself up when I start seeing inklings of individuals that have inspired me, and I'm grateful when it's on the positive side, but then I start kicking my own butt when it's on the negative side, right? And you want to always be that positive upbringing individual, but I think what's been most beneficial for us is just being, and you brought it up, David, how you held back from your sons, but then ultimately once Lillian came into the picture, you were open to them. And that's the one thing that now our situation is different. Like I said, we had our second child after we had Mia. So when we're in those situations, for better or for worse, we'll learn as Madison, our youngest, gets older. But from what we've noticed, we've also noticed that because we've been so forward with her, it's been able to help our entire family dynamic where she feels comfortable going and helping. And to me, that's when I'm at my most comfortable is when I'm seeing my family just simply living the life that God has provided us. And that's ultimately what brings me the most peace and happiness one day at a time is that when I'm seeing, you know, Mia over there getting fed for her lunch through her G tube, Madison's over there eating her pasta and strawberries, which is all she's eating right now. And then my wife's over there communicating with another Trisomy 18 mom or talking to her, her group that's a part of like either the Edward Syndrome Association or just her close personal friends. And also for me mentally, prayer is really heavy for me. Also, we've really taken into reestablishing since I've transitioned jobs, making that an opportunity to reestablish proper fitness into our lives. Finally, Gina has pushed aside the opportunity, the negativity of waking up before 5 a.m. because this job allows me to get into work a little later when I have to go downtown. So what we do is we get up 45 minutes, 50 minutes. It's not the best, but you know what's happening? Gina plays hockey once or twice a week. And she's been coming to me and she's been saying, you know what? My body's feeling not as tired, not as sore just by doing that. So we're taking those mental hardships and utilizing them as fuel to be positive for our overall family well-being. And ultimately, like Tim said, you're only as best as you're only at your best when you take care of yourself first. Mia and our other daughter Madison can't be at their absolute best unless they have their mom and dad at their very best. And that has been a light switch for me. So sold my bench, bought a squat rack, and now we're gonna rock and roll.
No. So, and Robert, you'll specifically see this a lot, like as your youngest gets older. Like our boys are incredible helpers with
Mhm.
Lillian. In fact, they fight over sometimes who can help and who
Right.
is gonna do what, who's gonna flush the G tube and little things like that. But the other thing when with each new child that comes, like obviously you worry about spreading out and giving everyone the same amount of attention. And I don't think it's a secret that unfortunately, our warriors require more attention, and you
Right.
have to be able to find that balance between your other family members, your other children, and even your spouse, like to give out the attention that's so needed by everyone because as human beings, we thrive on that. We need that connection and that feeling. Um, and we want to make sure, like, so as an idea of how we make sure that our sons are getting that attention, my wife and I will do one-off days where one of us will take one of the boys to a theme park, and just give that one-on-one time and that attention to them, because and it really changes like their, I think, mental health, knowing that they have that venue and that's something to look forward to, down the road when the time comes. Unfortunately, Lillian's last two hospital stays were literally over their spring break and the entire winter break, and it was
Mhm.
really struggling for them. So, if a lot of times companies that we work for offer like employee assistance programs and mental health counseling, I can't emphasize enough for the parents to engage in those and actually talk to someone. When Lillian was in utero, I don't know if it was pride or what. It was just
Right.
it was a hard pill to swallow at first, but once you finally, break down and actually do it, the benefit is there, and it is so
Mhm.
important that we do take care of ourselves first, like Tim said.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. And obviously that was also another question I was going to kind of touch on was just kind of how you, and I know Tim, this is not really something you can kind of touch on, but in regards to kind of life with your Edward syndrome warrior and the other kids. And also our dynamic's different. Your kids are older. My daughter's younger. So like that dichotomy is different as well. I know with Madison, she's we again, I try not to be prideful, but we're grateful that we see in her that she's well beyond where, a 3-year-old typically is in some respects. But she's in that same mindset where she wants to help out. She's shutting off the G tube machine, and she's just like, I want to help. I want to do this. And she always wants to incorporate Mia whenever she's playing and doing things. And she actually gets upset with us when we say no because Mia's either feeding or sleeping or because she just wants to do everything with her. And I think that's just a wonderful sibling bond that we have. And I know I've seen that with your boys, with Lillian as well. When we just had that one dinner together, like just their love and affection for her was infectious and it was beautiful. Um, so, I mean, I don't know if there was anything more you wanted to kind of touch on since you kind of already kind of brought that into the conversation.
I mean, they are the single greatest joy to Lillian. She does not light up with a bigger smile, with wider eyes than any other time besides when her brothers are giving her attention. Um, they are the first reason that she giggled for us.
Mhm.
They can help cheer her up in times when she is, just not happy. But I don't know, I've seen it done, but like they are a breath of fresh air for us, and really, a savior, um that gives us sometimes a step. Like, I know I can run, like, hey, I need to run over here, just watch your sister for a little bit, mean in the house, not anywhere outside the house, but
Right,
hey,
right.
hey,
Yeah, yeah.
just come and find me, like, if Lillian, needs something, and I know I can rely on them. But it's also, you know trying to do things like we live in Florida right now. Going outside for Lily, and oof, you talk about 95-degree plus humidity, that heat index well over 100. Like, we can't last out there long. And I got two boys, 8 and 10, that want to run outside and play outside all day after I just get home from work,
Right.
being outside all day, working in the theme park industry. So it is definitely a unique dynamic, and each day is a little bit different. And sometimes you just have to be okay letting your kids know, like, look, I don't have the energy for it today, or we can't do that right now. Let's try to mark it down on a calendar and do it, for the summer. We plan out certain things that we can and can't do, with days of rest also, because it's important. My wife is a huge planner. She makes a list for everything. we're taking a trip, we're going somewhere, like she makes a list and now I see it, the boys do the same thing and I love it because they're like, I can't pack, I don't have my list yet. So she makes them a list and
That's great.
yeah. So it's those little things to keep them busy and engaged that really helps the whole family.
Yeah, absolutely. Tim, does Brookie have any cousins or friends that are family friends that she's able to kind of have an interaction or connection with? That's not a blood sibling, but I mean, I grew up in a family. Yeah, I had a younger sister. My cousins lived out in Maine, so I didn't really have a personal connection with them. But my parents had really strong family friends that had children that were both my sister and I's age relatively. So like I always saw them as kind of like my cousins when we'd go to sporting events and whatnot. So does Brookie kind of have a situation kind of similar to that?
So no, I was actually going to bring that up to you guys or ask you. So she is the youngest in our family, kind of by far. I think the next, she's about 10 years. She has probably, 5, 6 cousins, but the next closest in age is about 10 years older.
Okay.
So she is in school full time right now. So she does AM and and PM pre-K.
Hmm.
So she gets is with other peers at that during the day, which is a good, it's almost 8 hours throughout the day. But I was gonna ask you guys about this. So for Brookie, it's like she kind of does need, I feel like, constant attention. Like if you leave her alone and she's not stimulated by something, she'll start, self-stimming, what we call it stimming,
Right, right.
where it's a lot of rocking and banging your head and that kind of thing. And sometimes it's fine, but you gotta obviously keep an eye on her because it could lead to a bad situation with her smacking her head.
Right,
Uh,
right.
but then just a lot of she will whine if she doesn't, like, I can't like put her and let her play with something for too long by herself. Like I feel like a
Okay.
typical developing kid would be able to play by themselves longer. So that's, I feel like, maybe a hard part for not having a sibling, but I was wondering if your kids are similar with that, with kind of needing a constant stimulation to.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, Mia will tell us, especially now as she's gotten older. She'll when she was younger, she wouldn't complain as quick, but now it's like within a minute or two. If she doesn't have some sort of what we call a phone cord that literally looks like an old school phone cord that
Yeah,
she's
I've
able to
seen
kind
them.
of floss her teeth with, or like one of those tubes that stretches, or one of her stuffed toys, something that she can kind of play around with, swing around. If she doesn't have that within the first couple of minutes, she'll moan and groan at you
Yeah.
until you give her and she's also now starting to get more opinionated and starting to it's really interesting. She's starting to not grab if you present her something that she doesn't want. So like Madison also helps out. Like if she drops a toy, she'll go and put it, and we've shown her how to properly put it in Mia's hand, so if Mia can feel it and grasp it. Now Mia can feel around on her lap and whatnot, but if it's not in her general like space that she's the physical space, but she's even starting to now Mia's like she'll grab it, but then she feels it and she's like, this isn't what I want. And she'll just drop it. And so like it's really funny. And like you try once or twice and she's like, stop, dad. I don't want this. And then she'll start to groan and but yeah, similar to you, like we don't want her to like smack her head. And now granted, like that's also because of like her hydrocephalus. If she does that too much, like we know that that might be an issue. But she's also really starting to show signs of being bored. So we've had to, and like I give, talking about the list thing, my wife has also started to, especially now that school's out and we're in the summertime, she's now starting to like make lists for the day of like things to do to keep not only Mia stimulated, but also Madison stimulated at the same time and kind of going through that cycle. Um, because uh because Mia, she's very, we call her our gentle soul because she can be left in eyesight at all times, like either in a chair or we have a mat in our living room and she can stay there and rock and roll as we call it and play with her toys. Um, but if she gets over it, she gets over it. And at that point, and like you have to make a change in some capacity, or she's also one David, she wouldn't take to Florida right now at all because she is an individual who likes it between 55 and 75.
Oh
That is her
man,
sweet spot.
that
As
doesn't exist
I
in
mean,
Florida.
I mean, that's all of us in some capacity, right? But Mia that's her window. If it's beyond that, she gets too cold and she's like, I don't like this. If she starts sweating and she's outside and she feels that sun, you better have 5 fans on her, or else it ain't gonna, or else you're not gonna be enjoying yourself.
Lillian honestly just ends up falling asleep in the heat most of the time. She'll
Really?
just conk right out. Like, and very different than for the experience that you guys have. Like Lillian is pretty content a lot of times just sitting there. She doesn't favor specific toys. She likes light up toys, but
Mhm.
even that, I mean, it doesn't have a long time frame that she's interested in. I mean, the longest thing she's interested in, like I've said already 100 times, her brothers. But she is very content a lot of times just being snuggled, like being held or
Yeah.
just sitting in her comfortable spot or in her chair while if we're in the kitchen doing something. Um, she doesn't fully engage in toys like too much, just a little bit here and there. And that's what we've been working on with some of her therapies. But in fact, sometimes when we're holding her and she'll start getting upset, it's because she just wants to lay down. She doesn't want to be held
Right.
anymore. She just wants to be in her spot and just stretch out. Um,
Uh-huh.
and that's really it. Sometimes like her brothers will overstimulate her, and it's like just give her a minute. Like, come on, guys.
Mhm.
I know you love her, but
Uh-huh.
back away for a minute. So,
No,
and then
spot
they,
on.
yeah,
Mia's the same way. Like she'll be like we'll be cuddling her and Madison will jump up or like she'll just or it's like at the edge of that bedtime and you just kind of like the feed is done. We started the feed a little early or it ended a little early and we have like a 10 to 15 minute window. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna cuddle your child, right? So you start doing that, but then like at like 5 to 7 minutes, she's like, "No, I just want to go to bed," and she just starts moaning, and like you try and reposition her, and she just keeps doing the same thing. You're like, "Okay, let's go start bedtime then." And whatnot. So I completely understand where you're coming from. So maybe we'll kind of end on this now, with it being the dad pod. And thanks again, guys, for doing this. This has been an absolute joy. We've already been doing this for 70 minutes now, and it's been flying by, and I've been loving it. But just to kind of put a bow on it, what advice do you have for dads with getting the diagnosis? Now we've told our stories and we've kind of dove into some of the experiences we've had as our kids have gotten older. But going back to where we were when we were at that stage of that diagnosis and all that entails from a dad standpoint of being a support system for your wife, being having the mindset of being a dad to a special needs child. What would you say to those newly established dads that are just learning about trisomy 18 diagnosis or any diagnosis, as a matter of fact, or just simply being a dad for the first time or a new experience like this? What's some things you kind of bring to their attention to just kind of be mindful of that either we have touched on, that you just want to reiterate, or something that we haven't possibly touched on? Tim, I'll let you go first.
Well, the first thing I thought of was a situation we had when Brooklyn needed open heart surgery when she was 6 weeks old. They decided to do it, and we were up at Boston Children's, and I think they have 29. They at the time they had 29 ICU beds in the cardiac thing. So a lot of a lot of patients or whatever, a lot of serious conditions. And I overheard, one of the other parents up there saying I think their kid had been in there like 10 months or something like that. And but they were, upbeat spirit. And I remember them saying to the another set of parents, they're like, how cool is it that God gave said that we were worthy enough to have this kid, and like picked us to be this kid's parents, and they just said it with such like an upbeat attitude. I was like, their kid was in there 10 months, I was like, then they were taking it, definitely in stride. And it gave me kind of a new perspective on that. Like, I guess we were, handpicked to have this situation. And just thinking of it in that kind of terms is helpful. But then, yeah, the support organizations, not knowing that you're not alone with it, and seeing I think a lot of it too is with the support organizations is there's always somebody kind of a step ahead of you with it. Like we knew what to ask for, like kind of stuff, like
Mhm.
where we should be going. Like I feel like we as parents in this these circles almost know sometimes more than the health professionals on what she might need next,
Mhm.
kind of thing. So yeah, that's what comes to mind.
Awesome. And that's a great perspective, especially being it's Brookie being your only daughter and your only child. So like that's you have even more of a special connection, I would believe. Because she is that you were literally handpicked for her and her story and to bring it. So thank you for that perspective. David, you're next.
I mean, I hope I can say it, but fight like hell. I mean, you really have to gain traction and fight for every inch from medical professionals. My wife, I can't say enough about having the partner I have because of everything she's willing to do. And she may not like that I say this, but she was never like that. Like she wasn't, but you have to be pushy and you have to be for lack of a term, like almost like aggressive towards trying to get these things, and she'll never give herself enough credit. But that's why
Mhm.
we're here as the husband, and the dad to support our spouse. Um, and you, you have to just really enjoy every moment of it. And when you're talking to those medical professionals, think about, if your child wasn't special needs, the same question is, what action would you do if my child didn't have this diagnosis? Because I think, and you've probably both have experienced it, like, well, it's just because they're trisomy 18. No, and I remember with Mia several times, and I think it was when she was going through those seizures and whatnot, and we've had that seizure battle. Like, no, there's a cause, there's something else. Like, I want to do this test, and it's like Tim said, like, ask those questions, those resources out there in those groups. We have absolutely, from whether it's the shake vest that we heard about from another person that had it to help their child,
Mhm.
to medications. Even, like, we know these people aren't medical professionals in the support, but they've experienced it, and our none of our children are the exact same. Like, and that's what this, because of trisomy 18, like they don't develop the same. They don't have the same ailments. They don't have the same, challenges at times, but there's similarities, and we need to make sure we connect those similarities and inform and educate the medical professionals also. Like, this is what's working for, another child out there, and this is what they tried. Like, what is your thoughts on this? And use them as thinking partners. But um you just you have to keep pushing and keep moving that needle. And I get, I think I kind of bug some people because I am an overly positive person, to the point where I know it drives my wife nuts at times. And it's important because we balance each other out. Not saying she's negative, but it
Know what you
it,
mean.
it it helps because like some of my cast members will say, like I had one situation where they're like, I bet you never had a bad thing happen to you in your life because I was so overly positive one day, and I was actually having a rough day. But then I said, let me tell you a story, and then I elaborated on, some of the things that is going on with Lillian, and you just don't know what is going on in someone else's head, in someone else's world. And just to be able to have those support systems, those spouses, those families, those friends, and talk about it like this podcast. Like, this is a great experience, and I'm so appreciative and thankful that you guys included me in this. So thank you for that opportunity.
Absolutely. No, and I mean, I know your story. I'm learning Tim's story. And ultimately, I'll kind of wrap it up. It's and I'll kind of dovetail off of kind of what you said, David, in another manner is don't and this is cliche within our society these days is that like you have a voice and you should express your voice. Like, that's a good thing. But what I mean by that is, in the medical profession, when we're fighting for our children with this diagnosis, and David, you touched on it with the recent seizure battle that we've experienced with Mia and trying to get her in the right regimen, and get everything situated with that and all the hospital stays and whatnot. What I've come to realize is my wife has told me that doctors and nurses have come to her that they've never experienced a father so hands-on and experienced with everything that's going on as they have with me. And I'm not saying that to boast. I'm not saying that as a method of pridefulness. What I'm saying that is because since day one, my wife and I have taken the responsibility as mother and father and worked as a team. There is not a thing in this house, under this roof, personally or with our children, that she and I don't know about, because that's just how we parent. So whenever there's a decision to be made, we discuss it. Now, that doesn't mean like if I'm going to be, going and getting lunch at work, I have to call my wife for approval. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is when big decisions are being made, we talk it out, we discuss it. So there's not something that Gina hasn't researched or known. And she makes fun of me all the time for forgetting things, but it's like, well, let's pump our brakes about how much is going on in this brain right here, right?
I get that
So
too.
what
So yeah.
I mean, I'm sure Tim does too. Um, but basically what I'm saying is you know more than you probably even give yourself credit for. And the experiences that we've been through, the hardest part, and this dovetails into the men's mental health stage, we're not ones to verbally say it. We're also not ones to socially put it out there on social media. We're ones to really bottle it up. And I've been very bad about this in my life, of bottling it up until it literally explodes. And what I've learned through Mia's diagnosis as her father is to not let that boil up so bad that it's going to be a hindrance to my family. And ultimately, when I'm not at my 100%, like Tim spoke on, when I'm not at my best and I'm not taking care of myself, that's a burden to my daughter and my wife and our whole family. So what I'm saying is be present as much as you possibly can, be a catalyst to your child, as well as being that support system to not only your child, but your significant other as well, as David, you touched on, and Tim, you've mentioned as well. So we're always going to be learning, and we're always going to be trying to figure out what the next best thing is for our children, but also being present where our feet are and living life to the absolute fullest. Because if you take a look at your child, pretty sure they're living the best life they possibly can. And that makes me the happiest person in the entire world. So with that, I will wrap this up unless you guys have any other thing you want to say.
I don't think I can top that.
All
It's
right.
it, it's true. All of our kids are the happiest they could ever be. I
Yeah,
mean, I wish I could just have that happiness at
yeah,
all the time. It's impressive.
Yeah. It's
yeah,
infectious in the best
yeah.
sense of the word.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. Like I hear from random people. Aaron posts a lot of pictures of her online, and how people have told us that they literally just scroll her page to make their day feel better, because she just has probably the best smile I've ever seen.
That's incredible. Well,
Yeah,
on that, thank you guys. Tim Hagen, David Hine, really appreciate your time today for the first ever Dad Pod. Have a good rest of your day.
later.
Thank you.